This is the Shoreline Tee by Ozetta, and the only goal I have today is to just sit here and knit it. That is it. I need to finish the body for a challenge that I'm setting up for myself. It is part of a different video, but that's my entire day today, just to sit here and knit. And at the same time, I thought it would be really fun to talk about some of my favorite tools and knitting notions. I am currently using a new needle set for this knit. I really want to talk to you guys about it. I thought it would be time to share my favorite things that I really love to use and have discovered recently, and then some items that I just kind of regret and never use. Knitting notions and tools are not the most expensive individually, but they quickly build up. Sometimes it's really frustrating when you buy something that you use for 2 days and never touch again, thinking that you could have used that money on something else. So this video isn't here to make you buy anything. This is just me sharing what I've discovered over the past years as a knitter. Over the past couple of days, I've been making lists and just tailoring it down ever so slightly so that it's not every single item I have in my house, but it could be more manageable to just talk about with you guys. Starting off with needles, of course, probably the most important tool to actually yarn is more important. But let's say needles are second, because I've seen people knit with their hands and not use any needles at all. I probably will not be knitting during this entire video, let's be real. But yeah, starting off with needles, this is where I store all of my needles. I mainly have interchangeable needles and DP ends. I don't have any connected needles that you can't swap out, essentially. This won't be on my list because this was actually a gift from me to me, but it is also a bit of a splurge. I bought this at a fiber festival, I think 2 years now, and this was a rather expensive buy. It is locally made, so it's just like a little case with folders and pockets where I put all of my needles. Now, in terms of needles, I love interchangeable needles. I have 2 full sets only, and the first one that I ever bought was the Clover Takumi needles. I bought those because I had heard that wood needles are a lot easier to start off with as a beginner because metal needles are very slippery, and then bamboo wood is a really good wood to knit with. So the Clover Takumi needles were the most affordable at the time and the easiest for me to get access to. I would recommend interchangeable needles. I also would say if you don't have a kit yourself right now, maybe buy a different couple needles from different sellers. Discover the one that you really like and click with, because they all kind of feel and work differently. Some of them, the connecting point is a little bit different. Some of them, it's the customization between the sizes. But definitely before investing in a full set, try different needles, because once you choose one, stick with it. That is what I did when I really wanted to invest in knitting needles. I bought the Chiagu Red Lace interchangeable needle set. I know many people have this, but since then I've also added the mini for the socks and then the shorties for the sleeve cuffs and things that just require smaller needles. I do not plan on getting the yellow set because that one is for the bigger size needles. I think it's for US 9, which is US 9 and above. I don't know what millimeter that is, and I don't know what other sizes it goes up to. I don't really use those needles, so these are the ones that I've been buying. I have also been buying individual needles, either because I need more of like 4mm needles. Everybody needs more 4mm needles, or the sizes that go down, such as the 2mm needles and then the 3mm needles. I think the Chiagu set starts at 3.25mm needles, or 3.5. It is an investment, but they're kind of the crucial thing. I personally never knit with flat needles. I don't really want to try. I also never really knit with the needles connected to the cable, so I have no experience with those. My first needle set was the Clover Takumi needles. The only reason I upgraded from that is because the connection point, I didn't like it. It just doesn't have a tightening part, whereas the Chiagu, you put a little stick in it and you can like really tighten it so it doesn't untwist as you're knitting and then all your stitches fall off. That kept happening with the Takumi, so I really wanted to invest in a bigger brand of knitting needles, but also a higher quality. That also brings me back to my tee that I'm knitting right now, because I recently purchased 2 of the Chiagu bamboo needles. I haven't seen many people talk about these needles. This is my first time using them and knitting them. I also haven't really seen them showcased in a lot of knitting shops. The knitting shops around here will basically just have the metal ones, not the bamboo. I know that there is a bamboo kit. Because I already have the main kit for the metal needles, I don't think I'm gonna buy the set of bamboo needles. I think what I'm gonna keep doing is buying them individually like this, but I really like these ones. They're really soft. They've been working extremely well on my tee. And the fun part is the connection point works with the red lace connection point. It is a bonus for me because one of the downsides with ChiaoGoo, if you've knit with them, is they don't work between the cable sizes, the needles, which is really frustrating. The mini sock needles need the mini cable. The regular shorties cable need the regular small cable. These ones also work with my red lace main kit, or half of it. For example, the yellow kit, the bigger needle size, that's the large cable. So when you buy the interchangeable, the main set, it comes with two different sizes of cables because half the set comes with the large cable and then the other half of needle comes with the small. That is the only downside I've really found with the ChiaoGoo needles, which is a little bit frustrating, but that's just how they work. Again, I don't really use the bigger needles, so those ones just kind of hang out in my needle case. But the bamboo needles, I've been loving these. I love them. I wasn't sure that it would work with the red cables, so when I bought the wooden bamboo needles from ChiaoGoo, I also bought their plastic cord cable. I don't like this one. I don't know if it's because I got a faulty cable or something. I might have to get another set to figure out if all their plastic cables are like this, but there's like a little nubbin on mine right before the connection point between the cable and the metal adjustment where you can like screw it in. All of my stitches snag and get stuck there. So that is really frustrating. I haven't been able to knit with this. I just connect my bamboo needles to the original ChiaoGoo red lace cables. That is what I've been doing. And I need to find a good cable organizer. If you have any recommendations, I'm all ears because right now I just fold them and shove them in the pocket of my case. Stitch markers. This is the case that I use for all of mine. I've switched to this recently because I was inspired. In Montreal, I saw in a knitting shop, there was a much bigger version of this. I think it was about 6 inches wide and it was like $20 or $30. I got this one from Amazon for $7. It currently has the cute little cat sticker on the back. I got this sticker from work. They don't know I knit. Well, the manager of my team was giving out cat stickers to everybody, and she gave me this one. It's like she knew, but she has no idea I knit. So I thought that it was really funny to get the knitted cat, so I just put it on the back. This is the $7 dupe that I got from Amazon. It's supposed to be a medicine box, but I've been using it for all of my stitch markers and trinkets in here. The only con I would say that this one has compared to the much bigger one is the placement of the magnets. For example, all of my little ChiaoGoo, like to change the cable pieces, little metal things stick to this magnet. It's a little bit annoying for that. Most of my metal stitch markers are in the center because I can't put them on the side. The magnets just get in the way. That is one thing to keep in mind because this is supposed to be for medicine. You're not supposed to have metal pieces in here. In the official knitting case, I think the magnets are more strategically put. I also really like the size of this one because it is much smaller. It fits in any bag and it's not that bulky. It's kind of cute. So it's perfect for all of my stitch markers. This also brings me into my favorite stitch markers. I have 4 different types of stitch markers in here. I have the circular ones that don't have any clip that I got for free with an advent a couple years ago. I have some bigger sphere clippy ones, and then I have some little cute arts and crafts stitch markers or the stitch counters from Melly Knits over the past years, and then I have some that I got in trades. My current favorite, however, are probably the little metal light bulb stitch markers. They're boring to look at. I have some rose gold ones, which I think are really fun and cute on a knit, but they're not as fun as the stitch markers you see at local craft fairs. However, because they're $200 for $8, I really don't mind if I lose these, and that is why I keep gravitating towards them. They're also really lightweight, they're thin, they have a clip, and because they're in the shape of a light bulb, there's like a much bigger part, so I never have to worry about the fact that my needle won't fit through the stitch marker. For example, these ones that I got, when I knit with bigger needles, it doesn't pass, or it ends up being a nuisance more than anything. And because it is fully closed, I can't clip it on and clip it off. I have much more freedom with my little light bulb stitch markers. I also use these to count rows, so I'll hook them off. They don't weigh anything, so they don't snag the material. The crafted stitch markers, those sometimes have weight, they dangle, they'll flip and flop on either side of the knit, and then you have to flop them over. There's a little advantage to knitting with them that way. And then because they're like $8 to $12 the stitch marker set, I don't want to lose them. I also found at Knit City this other light bulb stitch marker that has a bead on it. Of course, you can totally make this yourself as well, but I've been really liking these ones to differentiate the beginning of rows in my knit. If I'm making cables or lace work, I'm going to put the rose gold stitch markers everywhere, but then I'll put one of the beaded ones at the beginning of a row. That has been definitely one of my go-to new finds. And again, they store all in this little case. And a little bonus, because they're magnet at home, I have this little bowl with this little Merchant & Mills magnet. There are stitch markers on it because what I do is while I'm knitting, I'm too lazy to open up the little plastic case and close it. So I'll just take my stitch markers and just like drop in them here, and they'll just automatically stick to the magnet. Makes it easier to just pick up, throw, and not lose my stitch markers that way. But even with this bowl, I still find a way to lose most of my stitch markers somehow or another. When I'm knitting on the go, I will most likely take this pencil case that I got from Italy. It is from Positano, the C&B store. They have the cutest little dresses, but I just really wanted to get a project bag from them and this little pencil case. This is what I'm going to be throwing in most of my knitting bags when I head out because it has basically everything I need in here other than my stitch markers. But the next item I wanted to talk about is actually something that is very new to me, and it is barber cord or hold cord. There are many different names for it. I was hesitant to buying this for the longest time. I didn't even buy this. It was actually gifted to me in a gift exchange twice. I think that this is a perfect gift, but ever since I got it, I've been using it nonstop. It is these types of like plastic cords that you can just put on the end of your needle, slide all your stitches off, try on your knit or put it on hold, and then slide it back onto your needles. They're really effortless to use. What I used to do is I used to use a spare needle cord and needles and then slide those on, leave that there. So some of my knits would have 4 or 5 needles hanging off of them as I was working them up because I was too lazy to put it on a spare yarn and then try to get that yarn or those stitches back on needles. It just took a little bit longer. So I've been using this ever since I got it. I don't think that this is a necessary purchase. It just makes a great gift. But if I wanted to buy this, I probably wouldn't buy this from an actual yarn shop because it only comes with 3 or 4 cords in the little metal tin. It's more expensive. The reason why I have 2 colors is again because I got this gifted twice. I probably would buy one of the spools on Amazon that have literally meters and meters of this type of cord on it, and then you can just cut to the length you want and reuse it that way. Not that I'm supporting Amazon, it's just even at your local yarn shop you might find this type of cord for much cheaper, and then just cut it to the length you want. But this is just a really good gift if you don't know what to give someone because it is useful. In here I also have a little wool shaver comb. I don't really know what the right term for this is, but these are definitely a must. I have a couple different ones with different little comb parts. This one is a really intense one that catches all of the loose fiber and fragments. I have a softer one for just little lint blobs and blurbs, but definitely knitting, having chosen this hobby, working on knits, stuff just pills. You just need to clean them up. It takes 2 seconds. This is amazing. I highly recommend everyone to get a couple of these little combs. One thing that I also really love to use when I'm on a much bigger knit closet clean is a lint shaver. So this is mine. This you cannot use on mohair or really long, sorry, there's a fluff, really long fibered knits because it cuts. It's like scissors. This was actually gifted to me, I think 3 years ago now by a company. I don't think you need to get this exact model because this is quite pricey. At the time, I think it was around $150, $200 for this exact model. There are much cheaper alternatives, and I've used cheaper alternatives in the past. I think $20, $50 is a good lint shaver price for one of these. This one I really like it because it's cordless, so I can charge it It's been working for 5 years. There's 2 heads, so it really cleans the knit quickly. There are different adjustment heights that I can set it up to. There's different speeds, and there is a protection in here that it stops before snagging your fabric, which is really nice. But again, for the price, I don't think you need to get a really fancy lint shaver at all. It just makes the cleaning process so much quicker when it comes to cleaning up your knits. Oh my God, okay. Measuring tapes, of course, have to be added onto this list. They are a necessity. If you don't measure, you're playing such a dangerous game. I have 3 different options here. One of them I don't have with me. These 2 are the exact same, but it is kind of like a hybrid of this and something else. I actually really love to use measuring tapes that are just flat wrap ribbon measuring tape. I have a couple of different of these, and they're just so easy to get a flat, clean measurement. But when I'm on the go, what did I just do? It got caught on my thumb. But when I'm on the go, I just whip out one of these, super easy to get your measurement. It stays out, and then you just press the button, snaps back in. I have 2 different alternatives. And the third one is like the last measuring tape, but a hybrid with a construction measuring tape, because when you pull it out, it stays straight and flat. It's not a fabric or ribbon where it's dangly and loose. That one I think also only has centimeters on it. I got it from Muji, but I actually really like it to measure out things from a distance when these ones don't do the trick. So those are my 3 go-to measuring tapes. Of course, you don't need all of them, but I use all of them for different purposes and reasons. In here, I also have a crochet hook that needs to go in its proper place, but I also have scissors. I have 2 of these bird scissors, different sizes. Now, I don't think you need to buy these exact scissors. They're very cute and aesthetic pleasing, but at the end of the day, they're just scissors. Both of mine were gifted. The smaller birds were gifted with an Advent that I bought 2 years ago, and I recently got these ones last year when I bought my sewing machine. The lady who owns the shop just added this with the sewing machine as a gift. They're beautiful, and I really like them. They are super sharp, work really well, but again, scissors are just scissors, and honestly, most of the time when I'm out knitting in public, I don't have time to take out my scissors, or I'm too lazy. Yarn is really easy to just pull apart or just break, unless it's cotton or like a fiber that you can't really just pull apart. So most of the time I will just use my strength and just like snap the yarn that way. The final thing before we hop into the regretted items, weaving needles. I bought this little case at Maiwa 3 years ago. It no longer holds any of the original needles that came with it, but I really like the little case. It's perfect for weaving needles. It's magnetic, so the needles just stick into here. I like using a lot of metal needles. However, I do have some plastic in here because they are just bigger than your traditional metal needles. And if you're knitting with really wide, bulky yarn, it's just not gonna fit in the little metal weaving needles. In here, for some reason, I also have another measuring option. So this is a little measuring card that comes with the ChiaoGoo interchangeable needles. So I have used this to figure out measurements in like inches and centimeters, but I have never ever used these types of measurements to figure out what needle size I'm knitting with. Have you? I've never needed to, because all of my needles, it's either engraved in the wood or in the metal, it's like carved in there, so it doesn't rub off. So this is, I guess, just like a purchase that, well, it came with the kit, but I think that this is a purchase that most knitters do not need to make. I just really like how flat this is, and the weaving needles all have their little designated area, little folder. It pops in and out, and it's just really easy to just carry along with me and just buy exchange needles, because I keep losing all of my weaving needles. I don't know where they go. The last thing in this little case starts to tread the line between useful purchases that I really like and then regretting the purchase as well because of how often I use them. It's actually stitch stoppers, so your stitches don't slide off your knitting needles. I get the concept. I really like these when I use them. It's not that I don't use them and put them on my project, The problem really arises when I'm knitting. I forget to put them back on because sometimes I will just put my knit down for 5-10 minutes, go do something else and come back to it. I do that a lot, especially working from home. So I tend to misplace these quite often or just completely stop using them. But when I'm on the go traveling, I do like having these. Last time in Montreal, I did buy these little stitch stoppers because, as some of you guys know, I worked on the movie, but at the same time, they're just really cute and adorable. So I liked this purchase, but they were $3 each. So that's $6 for stitch stoppers that I don't really use too much. I've also bought these blueberries from Flock. Now I think the kit was, again, $6 for both. So in total, this is $12 that I could have spent on something else that I use, but I don't really use. I just wish when I stopped knitting, I was less scatterbrained and would more focus, okay, put the stitch markers on before you drop the knitting project. That is my only complaint about these. Definitely not a necessary item to buy, but I do find them really cute and fun to have. I like using them when I remember to use them. They make great gifts and are perfect for exchanges. My friend at the knitting retreat at the end of January had like a trinket box. It's kind of like a fish tackle box more or less, but it had stitch markers. It had a bunch of these little stitch stoppers as well, stitch holders and all that stuff, and you can just trade and exchange things. It kind of makes me think of the Taylor Swift like friendship bracelets that she does at her shows. Maybe every knitting meetup or knitting event should have a trinket box, and then you could just bring and exchange all of your trinkets. That would be really cute. Into the fully regret it buying items, a stitch or row counter. I actually got this at Knit City last year. In the past, I have tried apps where you just press on your phone. The thing that happened with that a lot was I would forget if I pressed the next row or not. Also, my phone would turn off the screen because I don't like having it always on display, because then I forget to turn it off and then my battery dies. So I figured this would be the next best thing, because I've also seen people use necklaces with a row counter on it, or those stitch markers that have one and it kind of hangs on your project. So every time you pass by, you just spin the little wheel. I don't necessarily want to have something that gives weight to my project even more. So I didn't want to have that option. And I thought that this would be a great option since it sits on your finger and you can just press it as you're working. The problem with this one is I will press it 2 seconds later, will forget if I pressed it or not. So then I still have to count all of my rows to figure out, did I press it or not? And then I don't trust myself when I'm counting, so I recount my counting, and then I end up taking it off because it's just kind of sitting there on my finger. It's bulky, it's pointless. This is $7 wasted, in my opinion and mind. The last two items are paper related because they're both book options, but the first one is a knitting journal or a knitting diary book. I always thought I would buy one of those really nice journals where you can write down your yarn, write down your pattern, your modifications, everything. But I already have a hard time with Ravelry and remembering just to type it there. When it comes to a knitting journal, same with a diary or a personal journal, I'll fill in the first 2 pages and then I will lose the book somewhere. So I never bought one of those $40, $60 books. Because of that, I just knew myself too well. In the past, I have tried to keep just a regular notebook with all of the modifications and changes I made. Again, I write 3-4 days in it and then I completely forget about it. I don't carry it around with me in my project bag because it makes the bags bulky and heavy, and I don't like to keep adding a bunch of stuff in my project bags that gives it weight, because then I'm not going to want to carry the project around with me in my purse. So I'm very much convenient, practicality, and what is small. So if I can remove anything from my bag and my purse, I will. A book just has no room there. I've seen Mel from String Things from Mel or by Mel. She fills out a beautiful journal with all of the drawings from the patterns that she's working up, the modifications, how she feels about it, what she's thinking, the yarn she's using, all of the measurements, everything. I wish so badly I could do that. I've tried so many times to keep a journal that way or a designated pattern knitting book. My brain just doesn't work that way, and I wish it did, but it really doesn't. The last final thing that I kind of regret buying, and I don't think it's a necessity to buy, but this is again a personal thing, is actually pattern books. I've bought quite a few pattern books over the years. I love looking at them. I love the idea of a pattern book. I love supporting pattern designers by buying their books. The whole concept is great. I just don't like knitting from a book. Again, it's something to have to carry around and lug around. I already don't print patterns because I don't like the inconvenience of going to the printer, printing. I know some people just like to highlight on the book or write their notes in their books or on their printed paper. It's something else to carry around, and I forget. So I just really avoid anything I can forget. The patterns that I really like to knit from are digital patterns. I do have an iPad and I do use it for like my cable knitting or the knitting that needs a chart. I've also noticed when I'm working one of those patterns where I do have to take notes and mark stuff down, they take 5 times longer than any other patterns because I need to carry my iPad with me. I need to make sure it's charged, needs to make sure the pen is charged. It's an extra weight to carry around in a bag. So those knits just take longer. I think I'm just really lazy and I just forget a lot. That's what I'm realizing right now as I'm describing all of this. Pattern books are often really pricey, especially here in Canada. They're $40 to $60 around. Some even go to $80. And then what I end up doing sometimes is I take pictures of the patterns to then look at it on my phone. The only inconvenience really with being a digital knitter from pattern or pattern knitter is sometimes, for example, Sadness Garn, the sweater that I knit for my boyfriend, their patterns are only available in books. So what I did is I bought the book, took pictures, and I looked at the pattern on my phone. As of March 2026, these are my favorite current knitting notions, and then my least favorite knitting tools that I carry around with me from room to room as I'm knitting on my projects. Some of them were new items within the last year. So for example, the barber wire, barber cord, or the stitch stoppers, same with the row counters, quickly became a favorite or a least favorite. Now I'm really eager to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section down below what are your favorite tools and notions to use, or your least favorite. Maybe we could either motivate each other to buy something that we're gonna love to use regularly every single day, or stop buying something and use that money for, let's say, more yarn, because we all need more money for more yarn. That being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you have a lovely, beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.